Good evening. My name is Sue Jones, and on behalf of the Valley Social Organization, I would like to welcome you to our Saratoga Mayor and Town Council Candidate Forum. And before we get started, I would first like to thank Josh Wood and the Saratoga Sun for doing our Facebook Live feeds on all of these. It's very much appreciated. And my next ditty to sell you is the 5th penny tax, and there's some information over here. This comes up every 4 years for vote, and it is vital to all municipalities in Carbon County for funding. It's been in existence for 41 years. It funds emergency services, senior centers, museums, water, sewer, an abundance of things. So on behalf of the municipalities in Carbon County, I would urge you to vote yes on the 5th penny, because without the 5th penny, we are penny poor. So I will turn it over to our moderator for this section, which is Cassie Westry. Oh, you want to come? She can tell you about 3 minutes or so.
Okay.
You got a beeper though?
Tonight we will use the same format as we have in the past. Each candidate will have a designated amount of time. It's usually 2 minutes. We might increase that to 3 minutes on occasion, but we'll let you know, or even shorten it if there's a lot of questions from the audience, down to 1 minute at the end. Tonight, we do have Mayor Glode, Mr. John Zeger, who is both of which are running for the mayor position for the town of Saratoga. Can you not hear me very well? No. Okay, is that better? Great, thank you for letting me know. For town council, we have two open positions that will be on the ballot. However, we do have 3 open positions because of a resignation. But 2 of the 3 candidates on the ballot will move forward and be on the town council. Incumbent Will Faust is not here tonight. He had a trip out of town that he had committed to. So tonight, running for town council, we have John Nelson and Bob Keel. Another note would be Kim Hytrek did withdraw her name from town council, so that you all are aware. I do believe her name will still show up on the ballot. I do ask that you be courteous of the timer. So when the timer does go off, take a few seconds to wrap up your thoughts, and we'll move on. So we're going to start out tonight by asking all of the 4 candidates here the same question, and then I will ask the mayoral candidates a couple of questions at the end. So the first question or response will be, please tell us about yourself and why you're running for office, town council or mayor, and why people should vote for you. Bob, I'll start with you down on the end.
So, my name is Bob Keel. I live in Saratoga. I've been here since the summer of 2016. I work as a medical professional, and I feel like the reason why I'm running for town council is not only because of my profession, but also because of my philosophy of being conservative with other people's money and the time and effort that it would take other people to respond to the specific laws or ordinances that are put out there. And so, I'm a family guy. I've got 5 kids, and I participate strongly in my faith, and I feel like that's a big part of who I am. And I'm excited for this opportunity and glad to be here.
John Nelson. Hey, Mr. John.
Hey there, John Nelson, running for town council. I think the main reason that I've thrown my hat in the ring and I'm running is just to continue community involvement and give back to the community and serve in some capacity. The last year, almost almost 2. I've been on the planning commission, and that's been a very rewarding experience.
Reserve account, when I decided to run, it had dropped down to just a little over 600,000. My goal is to work with the council and get that built back up. One example for that had 2011 when we had the high water events, had we not had federal government assistance, the price tag on that would have been 450,000 out of the Saratoga coffers. So if we were at that 650,000 mark, that would have taken quite a bit of a chunk out of that. I guess I will just stand on the record. I was mayor for 10 years prior to Mayor Claude winning this last go-around. I think we got a lot accomplished as the council. I'm pretty proud of the fact that we got Hop Bowl built back up, new dressing rooms. We put in what was called the Bridge to Nowhere that connected Veterans Island and the Hop Bowl together, and I think that was an asset for the town of Saratoga to get a draw. So I'm just going to go on my past experience on what we got accomplished.
I'm Ed Globe, currently the mayor of Saratoga, and I'm just running again. And I do this as a volunteer, just to help the community out, put in my shift. Our family's been here for a long time, and really not here for any power or money or anything else like that. Just volunteering to help out, putting in another shift.
Thank you. Should the airport be used for commercial flights? Mayor Globe, can you start with that?
Well, Brush Creek's going to turn the airport into a commercial airport all by itself, basically. Not really sure what that looks like in the next 2 to 3 years. If it can be a standalone, profitable commercial airport, then yes. If it is a subsidized, creates commercial airways by subsidy, I think that's unnecessary. So, but I think the volume of flights coming through here will classify it as a commercial in the next 2 years, probably.
Okay.
I guess I would support the airport becoming commercial. My only concern on that one would be we would have to put some type of fee in there, because if you have a commercial airport, then you need to have firemen there whenever the planes come in. And we just need to make sure that our firemen are going to have the equipment available to take care of that.
The topic of having commercial flight at the airport is, to me, more of a concerning proposition, I guess. I think part of what makes Saratoga special and unique to me is being geographically disconnected from some of the larger metropolitan areas, and having commercial flights to and from Denver, to from Salt Lake. I mean, yeah, it sure would be convenient when we want to get out of town, but I think that that door swings both ways. I think there are implications with increased traffic, increased noise that I would be concerned about. That said, as a councilman, I wouldn't want to enact any policy that would restrict any private business's ability to grow. And Saratoga Jet Center is one of those. I think we need to encourage them to have a viable business operation. But that needs to be well managed so that we're not, we don't become a Steamboat or a Jackson, in my opinion.
So it's kind of unfair for John and I to debate each other. We have a lot of similar ideas and opinions. So I guess it's not a problem for me to say me too. I just think it's important for us to maintain our lifestyle that we have here. A lot of us are here because we enjoy the small town. We enjoy the fact that we know everybody here. And I like John, but we do need to do our best to maintain the lifestyle we have, the reasons why we're here. And then by inviting the airport to be commercial, we also need to make sure that it's not crippling the rest of our services that we have here. We have to be able to support with infrastructure that decision. And so, it's not easy 2-minute answer. I think more of it is a lot of meetings in the future with the airport board and town council and figuring out, what's the best way we can move forward after that.
Thank you. Do you have any conflicts of interest? And can you think of any ways or any future reason why you may have to abstain? Start with you, John Baker.
I think the only one that I might have to not vote on would be any issues dealing with Schwimm's. I do run on the ambulance. We're very short-handed as far as volunteers go. I put in anywhere from 650 to 700 hours on call time for the ambulance each month. So that would probably be one I would have to back out on.
Okay. Mayor Blow?
As everyone knows, our family does own one of the biggest businesses in town, so there's potential for conflict of interest, and we sell a lot of things that the town can buy, so and they can't buy anywhere else in town often. So I guess from a conflict of interest standpoint, there's potential there. I don't vote on those bills, and I try to often sell the town stuff at cost and things like that, so I don't see any antagonistic activity there on my behalf.
Okay, thank you. Either one.
So I am an employee at the hospital, Memorial Hospital of Carmen County, and so if the contract for the clinic were to ever come up again, and the hospital would be considered as part of the solution, I think that it would be wise for me to recuse myself in that scenario. Otherwise, in a small town, everybody knows everybody. Oftentimes it's hard not to have a conflict of interest sometimes, and so I think that's why we're a council. We can talk with each other and work through some of those problems.
My conflict of interest would be anything related to the civil engineering business that I have. For example, right now, town is undergoing a level 1 water study with a consultant based out of Western Wyoming. So that report will be due in the late spring, early summer next year. I look forward to receiving that because it's going to give us a lot of insight on what our water system is doing. But if another contract such as that were to come up, I'd recuse myself from the votes on who that would go to. And also, before I filed, part of my consideration was knowing that if I'm sitting up on council, North Fork Engineering would be bidding on any Saratoga work, at least while I'm serving. So made that decision, move forward that way. And yeah, I just want to be transparent about that.
Many residents feel the current administration isn't very transparent in town operations. How would you change that if you think it's necessary? Start with Mr. Nelson.
I think that there's definitely been some feelings of lack of transparency in the last, call it 4 or 5 months. It's been, as somebody who is a resident, a citizen, it has been frustrating to learn that, it seems like things are going on behind closed doors and off the record, only to come to light several weeks later. Part of the way that you can change that we can change that, is simply by encouraging more public participation in the process. You guys are here tonight because you're invested and interested in what's going on politically in this community. I wish there were more people here that felt the same way. So, part of that's on council, part of that's a culture that exists in our municipalities, not just in Saratoga, but many other places. Part of it is, I think, on the public too, to stay engaged and stay informed. My commitment would simply be to be transparent and be forthcoming with information, and do everything we can to have those discussions and make those decisions in the light of day in public meetings. And work with the newspaper and the radio to get the word out on what we're talking about and what we're thinking about.
Mr. Keel.
So, as a town council, there's some legal matters that can't be discussed sometimes out in the open, and that's why some executive sessions are important. I think that if that's the case, it should be very clear why the council is going into an executive session. And then to second John, I think community participation is key. That's why I'm here. Not only coming to town council meetings, but participation on a lot of the committees that the town has. I know there's some committees now that are functioning well because there's not a lot of participation. So if we had more people come to these and more people participate, it would be a lot easier to disseminate some of this information. Maybe the key is to be a little more public with these town council meetings by radio, newspaper, Facebook, who knows. But, I think the key is if there has to be private meetings, just being very clear and vocal why that has to happen. And then, when the decisions are made public, again, reiterating why those decisions have to be made behind closed doors.
Mr. Seeger.
Every election happened 4 years ago, it happened 2 years ago, the word transparency comes up. That's just one of those words that we may not like to hear. I think that one of the things the new council could do going in, what I would like to do is maybe once or twice a month on a Friday, just kind of have a coffee day so the public can come in and visit with any of those council members that can make it. We just need to be upfront. I know sometimes things appear that we're trying to be secretive, or elected officials are trying to be secretive. We just need to, I'll echo the other two, get more community involvement and advise the public, encourage the public to come in, have office hours, open door policies.
The only one up here that's up there in administration, I guess.
I can just continue.
It appears that I'm not very transparent, but I think a lot of that stereotype has come in the last 4 or 5 months because of what's gone on in local healthcare, and I think that hit a lot of us in a way we weren't prepared for, and we're still dealing with that. We've been dealing with that today. We all have the goal of moving forward to have better health care. That's the one thing everybody in this area needs more than any other service, I think. So that process I can see from the public did not look very transparent. Don't think this question was out there 8 months ago, at least not as much. So apologize how that's looked in the public's eye, but we are trying to make that better, and it should be better soon.
Thank you. Where do you personally want to see our town in 5 years? Mr. Seeger, if you'd like to start.
So there again, I think it's going to depend. We need to make sure that we have our reserve accounts built up so if anything happens that we're ready to react on it. I just want to see that Saratoga has a welcoming atmosphere to those outside. One of the things I really want to concentrate on, it started back when I was mayor last go around, is we got the property designated as Tyler Pickup Park, and it's just kind of been put on the back burner ever since. And that's just something that, and I know that Councilman Wilcox and the current council has around $21,000 in an account to start working on that, but we just need to move that project.
Monday night.
Thank you. Mayor Glover.
I think this, we all talk about economic growth, stuff like that. We just don't have that many customers, whether you're a town or a healthcare system or a retail store or a restaurant. So then at, 5 years from now, what does that look like? I don't know. You know, we talked about not wanting to become Jackson Hole or Steamboat. How do we control that growth at that point? And that's not anything I have an answer to, but I do believe that healthcare and the internet are two things we must have to grow both.
Mr. Keel?
You know, I think that a stable healthcare situation is one of the hopes for 5 years. I do think we're headed down that path. I think some good decisions have been made. And so my hope is that as a town council, we can perhaps stay out of the way of that private business as it moves forward and then help where it is our capacity to help. I also feel that there could be better solutions for our EMS service in this county. And, you know, our town is part of that. And in 5 years, I think there could be some great solutions that can be achieved where lack of volunteers, where we don't have travel times that are outrageous, where we have better access to care. So those are two things I'd like to see. I also would like to see the town, you know, not going away from what makes us Saratoga, not going away from, you know, the good fishing, the nice outreach, and getting too big for ourselves.
Thank you.
Kind of what I see for the next 5 years is I think it's going to be a kind of a wild ride and an exciting time. Because of the energy projects, the wind projects and the transmission projects that are happening in the county, we're fortunate to benefit from that financially through impact fees. And so we have an opportunity to use those fees to take care of some items that I feel have been neglected. A couple of examples of that would be our leaky water tank. Our well field does not have a backup generator, and I think that's a risk to the town. Kiddie pool at the pool leaks and has trouble staying warm. Some of our water mains are in pretty dire straits, and I think we ought to do something to address those through projects and some capital projects using that impact funding. So knowing that we have this opportunity over the next 3, 4, 5 years to utilize that funding wisely, I'd like to come out of that 5 years from now and be able to look back and say that we spent it well, and we spent it wisely, and we took care of a lot of nagging issues that are ultimately going to reduce the town's operating expenses and the day-to-day expenses with, pumping additional water that's being lost or fixing water main breaks. I mean, that stuff costs us money. If we can use these impact fees from them to get ourselves out of the hole, I think we can be more financially stable 5 years from now.
Thank you. This may expand on the question I just asked, and some of you already touched on it, but it's our community is changing/growing. We want to grow on our terms. What do you think those terms should be? I will start with Mr. Nelson.
What are our terms for growth?
Seems like it.
There's something I got on a little sticky note on my wall that I see every day at the office, and it says, "Culture is upstream from politics." So I think the key in whatever we do and how we grow and whatever external pressures are put on us is that we remember that the things that happen in town hall should be driven by things outside of town hall, what are happening in the community and what the community feels. It should be the other way around. I'm not saying it is now, but we just need to keep that in mind, that the political forces can sometimes outweigh the community forces, and we need to be very careful to balance that and ensure that what we're doing inside town hall reflects the will of the citizens of Saratoga.
I feel like if the town were to grow, we would need to make sure, like John said, we're not only transparent, but that we treat the people of the old town just like the people of the new part of town that would be coming in. can't forget where we came from. We can't forget to take care of, the whole group as a whole and not get so focused on new subdivisions, new businesses coming in. And make sure that as we're growing together and not just as the new people coming in. I also think having good, open conversations as councils and committees on this growth is important too. That way we get the community's input. That way we understand what our constituents, the people that put us here, want as far as where this growth is going and how we should deal with it. So I guess my final answer is be transparent and let's not forget, the old town versus the new town.
Keep on, excuse me, Mr. Seeger.
I think as far as a whole bunch of growth, Saratoga is pretty much landlocked as far as expanding outside our city limits. We have maybe, 7, 8 blocks that could be developed. Some of those are in residential areas, so we need to be careful what we allow in those. We need to be sure that we're getting the type, if we're going to bring new business in, we need to make sure it's the type of business that's going to be a good fit for us.
And this is the tough one, how you control growth when the growth comes. Do you become a retirement community? Do you become a young community? How does that work? In Saratoga, I think we do have a lot of full ownership. We don't have all that many guys. Support that and stick with the family values of the town and what identifies us as family and friends. I think we can probably grow a little bit in the right direction. But once we sell out, then it's probably too late.
Thank you. How do you propose to handle the budget shortfalls, Mr. Gold?
Want to start with me or that one?
Yes, please.
It's tough, every budget session we go through, and we're always cutting things. It seems like revenues are incrementally going down every year. Expenses are incrementally going up every year. A lot of that's from federal and state regulation, things like that. It's difficult. Our biggest expense line are personnel expenses. That's why we've lost a couple of people in our water and sewer department and replaced them with one. We're not in a reduced staff situation right now, but when somebody leaves, we should ask the question of what we're going to do with that spot. Because that is the biggest deal. Our town days ago decided we're going to have 24/7, 365 law enforcement. That costs what it costs. That light switch never gets shut off. That's expensive. And so, there's no easy solution to that. John was saying you try to. In the last 4 years, we have gone through some reserves, doing different things from LiDAR flights to digging out the river. There's all kinds of stuff. So there's no easy answer to that question, but trying to get wrapped around the accounting side of things a little bit more. It's always fun to learn about the difference between enterprise accounts and then the general fund, and then there's the non-enterprise accounts that need to be treated like they are. So I don't have a great answer for you. It's been a challenge for us the last 4 years for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Seeger.
I think what we need to start off with is doing a mid-year budget review. It doesn't matter if Mayor Glow gets elected or if I get elected and these two councilmen get elected. The council needs to sit down and do that review. And from there, I think it's very important that we have some workshops. We usually have the workshops during the budget session, but I think we need to have workshops right after we do our budget review, and we need to get the public in there so they know what we're facing and coming up with ideas of what we could do to raise some more funds. It's pretty easy for us to sit as a council and think, okay, we're going to cut here or we're going to add there. But we need input from the community because ultimately you're the ones that get affected by the decisions we make.
I think there's a couple things that we can do, not only to increase revenues, but also decrease expenses. There's some little things that have been done in the last couple of years that I think have been very successful in terms of raising revenue, that, not in the form of taxes. One would be the sanitary waste dump station on the lagoons. I mean, that's been a moneymaker for the town at a pretty low capital investment. They just changed landing fees at the airport. I'm sure you guys heard about that. But again, another successful thing that's been done to just create a little more revenue in places where it's not coming off the backs of residents necessarily, and in most cases. Tap fees, adjusting our tap fees would be another way to potentially do that. Again, that would be a solution that wouldn't always or predominantly come off of Saratoga residents, out of Saratoga residents' pockets. That would be, call it an impact fee to the water system or the sewer system from somebody building a new house. And then, I keep going back to this idea of capitalizing on the impact money that we're going to see over the next few years to take care of some of those nagging problems, things that need to be repaired or are about to fail and are going to be repaired in the next few years, and getting those addressed now so that we can reduce our operating and maintenance costs in the future.
I feel like we need to treat the town budget similarly to how a family treats their own budget, and not spending money on stuff that you don't have money for, planning for the future. So I think that in the recent town council meetings, we've been talking about some ways that we can make sure we're funding the Corbett medical building, and how we can ensure that when or if problems come, that we don't have money sent away for that. I think that's one of the keys is stop spending money where you don't have it and planning for things that can come down the road. Now that's easier said than done. Like John talked about the impact fees that with the windmills that are coming in, that's one way. Grants are available. Searching out and finding some grants that can pay for things that we're paying for out of our normal budget, so we can save that money and put it elsewhere. And then private funding. I know the Tyler Pickup Park has been sitting there a while, but we're continuing as a community with these raffles and other things to try and gain some private funds to help with that. I don't think that is a bad idea. I don't think it's the only solution for some of these things, but I think it can help. And so in the end, I think planning for the future, not spending money when you don't have it, and being creative with where you get your monies from.
Thank you. How familiar are you with the issues before the Planning and Zoning Commission? And give us your thoughts on how you'd like to see the issues. Start with you, Mr.
I'll be honest, I'm not terribly familiar with everything that's gone in front of the Planning Commission. I think I'm starting to get an idea with my personal experience of getting an exception for putting something on my property, and what the steps everybody here in the town has to go through. Part of that is going in front of the Planning Commission. I think the Planning Commission is a very important part of what this town is about. It's citizens that live here, helping make decisions that will impact all of us, and about where businesses can go, what you can do on your own land, and how the Planning Commission can affect other people as well is important to me. More than that, if I were to be elected and I would be the representative to the Planning Commission, I would take that philosophy to be there. This is a question that was for John.
That's kind of a fair question.
All
Do we have a planning commission? Yeah, needless to say, being the chairman, I'm very familiar with the issues that are in front of the planning commission. I won't go into detail about them, but I think one of the most important things that's coming up over the next year is going to be the floodplain ordinance. We've done some really good work over the last year and a half getting some of the old ordinances straightened out. continuing to work on that, but rolling into a council position from a planning commission position will be seamless for me.
It's been 4 years since I've really paid much attention to the planning and zoning issues. Pretty much what I've been hearing on the radio and is the RV issues. It's kind of a 50-50. People, 50% of the people kind of like that idea. There's 50% that aren't real pleased with it. So I'm not real up on my planning and zoning this last 4 years. So I apologize for that.
Kind of a funny story. We hired a new attorney 4 years ago for the town, and I didn't talk to him that many times. You know, we don't lean on the attorney that much. In one of our conversations, he told me that all zoning laws were written by the devil himself, and so I got a good kick out of that, and I think he's right. But it's basically we're taking these little 100-plus-year-old towns that were little villages, and you know, this one was from coal mining and copper mining and logging and that kind of stuff, and how it developed haphazardly for several decades. And then, you know, years ago, people decided they wanted to control the growth of the town, put this over here and that over there and that kind of stuff. Kind of the conversation we were having 15 minutes ago. It's a challenge, it really is, because a lot of the things you write an ordinance to clean up the town, right? Well, that's pretty hard to enforce. It's difficult. So, you know, that's probably the biggest challenge in front of the planning commission right now. Is how do you zone everything and how do you clean up some of the messes? That's what everybody wants done.
The fire department is unfunded and they have to do fundraising to get into compliance with their PPE. Do you feel this is the position they should be in as a volunteer fire department, and how should the town assist in replacing aging equipment? Start with Mr. Weaver.
I think that it would be a perfect opportunity to take some of those landing fees, since I know this past couple of months, the fire department's been up at the airport numerous times because of the commercial flights that are coming in. I think if we took a percentage of the landing fees and put them towards the fire department, that would be a big help. I knew this subject was going to come up because I've had a couple firemen discuss it with me and their concerns as well. I decided to visit with Mr. Rutherford, the fire chief over in Rollins, and also the county fire warden, and one of the captains on the fire department in Rollins, just trying to get an idea of which direction we should be going. They said as far as the air packs, you need one air pack per seat on your fire truck, not necessarily an air pack per fireman. So I think that we need to focus on getting them new bunker gear, but I don't know that we need to go with 15 or 20 air packs right away. We just need enough on the trucks so they can get there. So we do need to somehow, I don't know, when we rework the budget and look over mid-year, what we can do there, but I think landing fees would be a start, or taking part in the landing fees since they're going to be up there.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Nelson.
I actually looked at the ordinance on this the other day. Ordinance 455 back in 1980, 70 something. When the volunteer fire department was set up in that ordinance, it was intended that they would receive funds off the town's general fund budget to pay for equipment and operating expenses for the department. And that was to be supplemented by any fundraising activities that the department could do. So it's designed to be a hand-in-hand relationship. The volunteer fire department is not a town department, though there is funding that comes from the town to the fire department. I think part of the problem recently has been not that the funds aren't being allocated in the general budget, but that the availability of those funds is sometimes questionable. So what I'd like to do is work with the volunteer fire department to come up with some written goals and objectives and lay out in writing what it is that we're trying to do over the next several years, what is the equipment that needs to be replaced, come up with a schedule for all those replacements, and then designate a reserve account so that if the budgeted amount is $20,000 a year, and we use 15 of it for, I'm using just round numbers, I know that probably doesn't cover bumper gear for squat, but you use 15 of it in 2019, and there's 5 left over, that in 2020 that doesn't disappear, but they get to save that up, it gets held in a reserve account, so that when those big capital expenses come along, like a fire truck, that we plan for it, we budgeted for it over the course of many years, and just, encouraging better communication, collaboration between town hall and fire hall.
We have a good opportunity coming up with the impact fees that are going to be made available. I think there could be some good funding sources there. That doesn't always come along, and so I think we need to take advantage of that when it comes. Also, I'm a big proponent of being efficient, and there has been some proposals recently that have come to light, to me at least, of different models of the EMS in our county. And I think these models should be given a good hard look, where some costs can be shared throughout the county, and we can have better EMS altogether. So I think we need to take a good hard look at that and see how that can benefit us as a town here in Saratoga. And then getting behind a plan that can help the whole county can also help us here in Saratoga with the funding of the fire department.
Sue mentioned the 5th penny tax when we started tonight, and there's another opportunity coming up. There will be a ballot in May for the 6th penny tax. It's called the specific purpose tax. And we are developing what we want to do with that money as a group in the next 2 weeks. We have to have that ready by November 9th. Part of that structure would be first responder money. And so first responder being EMS, first responder being the fire department and the police department. The fire department side of that is we would ask for the $210,000, put that on that 6th penny tax, and that should get in bunker gear and air packs for the department. That's kind of what we're looking at. We weren't really looking at, fire trucks can be a sensitive topic, but everybody definitely wants the bunker gear and the air pack. That's part of our plan today.
So that brings up a really good point. What would you all want to put in for the 6th penny? What projects would you like to see be on the ballot? I know those discussions have already probably taken place, and but it'd be interesting to know what your priorities are based on what you would like to put in for. Mr. Ziegler.
I guess I would have to agree with Mayor Gloat on that. I think it's going to be a good opportunity. I think the fire department has been somewhat put on the back burner. I don't think it's been intentional. If the revenues go by, the budget goes by anticipated revenues. We may anticipate 150,000, but if we only get 100,000 in revenues, kind of have to cut where you have to cut to make that work. So I would agree that the fire department probably ought to be one of the areas that needs to be covered.
Mr. Gloat.
We're an example a few months ago of a water line breaking down by the 4-way stop by the hot pool, and it's river rock shooting through a house. It was kind of crazy how that was going. And there's some of the water infrastructure around the town is fairly old, 90 years old stuff failing. So kind of in conjunction with certain water projects around town, the water tower is definitely one that we think should be on the list. And then kind of a possible conjunction project with YDOT to do a little work through town on the River Street, 2nd Street Highway, all the way through town from the north end all the way to the grocery store. kind of what we're looking at. So,
Great, thank you. Mr. Keel?
I believe that some of the most important things that the town should be providing are some of these essential services, fire, EMS, water. I think that's a great place to start, making sure all of those things are taken care of. You know, we all want good fire equipment, and with our recent history, I think that's forefront on our minds. And maybe some of the issues we weren't aware about are now made available to us. I also would like to play around with the idea of getting a little more help for our police force, whether that's training, as in perhaps a little further advanced medical training, since they do respond to a lot of accidents and medical situations, whether it's equipment to help them out. And then, of course, the water infrastructure. I think that's pretty basic. I think we'd all be pretty upset if we stopped getting water to our house for this.
What they said. No, you guys, I think you hit everything that was kind of on my mind. You know, we touched on water mains, the water tank, generator, backup generator, the well field. Those are critical things that we need to address. The bunker gear and the air packs, absolutely. We've also got some police vehicles that are, I think, losing more oil than they're burning gas. So, you know, just from a maintenance cost standpoint, it might make sense to invest in something that's not going to cost, you know, several $100s a month to maintain. That's what's going on there. So those are kind of the critical pieces of it. Streets, too, we've got some pretty bad streets that are failing, and it would be a great opportunity to do some mill and overlay, and get another, you know, 10, 12 years of useful life out of those while we have the opportunity and funds to do it. And then on the recreation side, I think I mentioned the pool earlier. You know, we've got a leaky pool that won't stay cold, won't stay warm. That's an amenity to this community, especially for people with young kids that are in the kiddie pool. And then just kind of a wish list item, I guess, would be some, you know, call them regional trails or bike trails. I think we have an opportunity to, you know, connect downtown to Veterans Island, utilize the old rail right away that goes up kind of through the Saratoga Resort property, maybe loop that around to the Forest Service property and come back down the highway in conjunction with the Wide Out Highway project, improving the campground out the lake. You know, this is the time to address those things when we have all that money that's going to be bonded, potentially bonded, with the passage of the 620 tax.
Thank you. When your personal views don't line up with your constituents' views, what is your thought process to get to a decision? Mr. Ziegler.
Well, you're sticking on Mr. Ziegler. You know, there again, it just has to be open discussion with each other. Was the mayor for 10 years. We didn't always agree, but we were able to come, you know, we listened to each other. And I may not agree with the three of the gentlemen at this table, but if the three out of the four of us think it's a pretty good idea, then I think it's time to jump on board and work with them. Sitting there and fighting in council meetings or disagreeing totally is not going to work for the betterment of the town.
all of us have a perception of what the majority of people are thinking, and not always is that accurate. That happens to every one of us, whatever we're doing. So often there's 2 or 3 people making a lot of noise, and the rest of the people aren't. And so that's a difficult question. I know it's never happened to me before. But what John was trying to say too, I think is that's what the council's for, is to get elected and sit and make decisions and do it as publicly as you can. That's why we vote on stuff. Sometimes we have a consensus and sometimes we don't. But that's kind of what I'm thinking on that.
Okay. Mr. Nelson.
consensus is important for many reasons, but ultimately, when you have a council of 5 people, you don't always have to vote the same way. I think a 4-to-1 vote or a 3-to-2 vote is a fair vote. That's why you have an odd number of people on the council. And if you're tackling subjects and topics that are controversial that you don't always see eye to eye on with everybody that you're sitting up there next to, that means you're probably doing some pretty important work. You're taking on some pretty important topics. So, I look back at some of the planning commission meetings that we've had, and I think the most important part of that process is just having really good discussion, letting everybody share their ideas, talk it over, listen to your fellow council person's viewpoints. Then ultimately, if you feel like you got to stick with your guns and be the odd person out and go 1-4, that's what you're up there to do. I look at some of the exchanges I had with Councilman Wilcoxon, and we saw him at the post office the other day, and he said, you and I might not always see eye to eye, but it's still good to have those discussions and have some disagreements over important topics, and I respect that. And look forward to having those with him moving forward.
I don't think you can avoid it completely, that situation of the internal turmoil of, I know what I believe, but what's best for the town. And that's the beauty of local politics, is that you get to be so close to the people that voted you in by participating on committees, not just the town council, but it's on the planning commission or the parks and recreation and a lot of these other committees that are there. So, I look forward to being active in that role and being on those committees where I am, hand in hand with the people that voted me in, hearing their opinions, hearing what they would like to have happen. And ultimately, if it's something that I want versus something that I feel is a general consensus of the town and not just a loud 1 or 2, I've been voted in to do what's best for the town. I'm a humongous University of Utah fan, but I'm not going to put banners up every year because that's not what's best for the town, and that conflicts with what I believe. And so
Or
I
your
think
banners.
we all just need to have the integrity of, we were voted in here to make this town better. We were voted in here because of who we are and what our political beliefs are, but also you've got to realize that sometimes there's going to be a clash, and just knowing and recognizing that. I also want to point out that the actual function of the council is humongous for this purpose, because you're constantly bringing up different points of view, different opinions, and you are, as a council, you're polishing the coal into the diamond, making things better, and so I look forward to that, bringing my perspective to the county council.
Great, thank you. As with all councils, there's room for improvement. What could the town be doing better, or what changes would you like to see, or what improvements would you like to see in your tenure if you get elected? Start with Mr. Gold.
I don't know how to answer that question. It comes down to the same difficult stuff. If I did know that, it'd already be done. That when we did the master plan, our biggest deals were cleaning up the town was number 1, and flood mitigation was number 2. We've made some efforts in both of those. Our river still is very impaired from 2010 and 11. And we still have some messes around the town. We've spent a lot of money on both of those, and it's still not fixed yet. Those are the 2 biggest ones when we talk about doing some streets jobs and different things like that. That's basic infrastructure improvements. Makes the town look better, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, Mr. Keel.
Could you repeat the question?
Yes. Let me find it. As with all councils, there's room for improvement. What could the town be doing better or the town council be doing better? Or what changes would you like to see in the current town operations?
I want to be clear that I am not criticizing this answer. I participated in town council meetings over the last several months, and I feel like, they're doing a good job. Of course, there's always improvement that can be made. I feel like since I've been participating in town council, I feel there's a big opportunity lost by the town as a whole by not having more community involvement in those meetings. I would really love to get more people involved, and I think you're going to have to get creative because, we all have conflicting schedules. We all have kids doing things all at the same time, and so getting more people involved, getting more people aware of the things that are being discussed creates ownership. We all have more ownership of what's going on in this town. I think we're going to get a lot more opinions out, and we're going to get a lot more people to help us make things better. Because we're only 5 people and we have 5 opinions, and 100 opinions are better than 5, and that will help us weed through some of the problems we're having and help us really get to the best solution for some of these things. I believe that is one of the main things I'd like to see happen, is a way that we as a town council can get more people involved and more aware of what we are discussing every day.
Yeah, I was going to say public participation. At planning commission meetings, when I first joined the commission, I remember several meetings in a row where it would be, Mike Armstrong and Emma Dearce and maybe one person that was there for a permit or a variance. And I think just through encouraging public comment, more people realized that was a place where they could come to express an opinion and give some insight. And honestly, a lot of times where, we're talking about the RV park ordinance or the mobile home park ordinance, somebody that came to the meeting that's not necessarily vested in that topic has some really unique insight. So asking for that public participation, asking for that public comment, I think is really insightful to the commission or to the council. And, the more discussion that's had in a room, the more opinions that are shared in that room, I think the better the decisions are that are made. At council meetings, Richard Hodges back there, he's a regular, and not many meetings go by where he doesn't have something to say about something. Is that fair?
I was just in the back of the room and nobody notices that now.
I'm calling you out, man. But, I think your voice is an important voice, in my opinion, at council meetings, and I wish that there were a more numerous and more diverse group of voices like yours that were heard on a regular basis.
I'm going to go off in a little bit different direction. I'm going to kind of reflect back on my job as emergency manager, and we're required to have so many exercises a year, which gets all of us together, fire, ambulance, police, elected officials. And so we all get together, and the biggest issue we've ever had in any exercise, and I think it's the same in being a commissioner or being a council member, is communication breakdown. And I think that we just need to concentrate so your whole council knows what's going on and not just 1 or 2 or 3. You just have to have good communications to have a good council or any other organization.
At the last forum, a lot of our discussion revolved around the local healthcare situation. What are your thoughts about where we are headed regarding local healthcare? I'll start with Mr. Keel.
The council has done a great job in the past couple of meetings at making sure we've protected ourselves from the causes of our current problems. We're pretty powerless as a city, as a government entity on how we can affect healthcare, but in the way that the city can affect that is in the lease they have with the building. And so the town has been very meticulous and has welcomed public input. I've gone and been given every opportunity to speak, and I'm not on the town council. And so I feel we're going in a positive direction. We're making the changes needed to do what we can do as a government entity to influence healthcare. Now, the rest of the things that can influence that have to do with the private sector and principles of the good economy. And so I think of what can be controlled, I think a good job is being done now because we've learned from possibly some mistakes that were made, not because we were lazy, but because this situation that presented itself, wasn't happening before.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, 5 months ago, 4 months ago, when this medical clinic situation kind of came to light, I was pretty skeptical about the direction that we were heading. I think as more information has come to light, I'm feeling really optimistic about where we're going. I think there were some critical problems that were addressed and are being addressed. We can probably debate all night long about how they were addressed, but the fact that there were problems that needed to be addressed, I think is very clear at this point. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the direction we're heading. The discussion of having a critical access hospital here in Saratoga is one that I think needs to be vetted. I know that there'll be a process where there'll be a feasibility analysis performed, and I would just be really reluctant to make any promises or commitments about what that would look like and what's going to happen without first seeing the numbers and making sure that facility can stand on its own 2 legs. Because if we're having trouble trying to keep the clinic operational, I don't know that trying to have a bigger facility is the right answer. It might very well be because of the difference in the whole funding model, but I want to wait on the feasibility analysis to make that assessment.
I think as a council, we need to be really careful that we don't get involved in the medical business. I think we're there. We own the town owns the building. The town comes up with a lease and leases it to whoever the foundation chooses to put in there. But I truly believe that as a town, it's not our responsibility to be in the healthcare business, but to work with whoever is there to make sure they have a great facility to work out of.
There's several spokes to healthcare, from the ambulance to the clinic to the nursing home to an assisted living that we do not currently have. And all of those right now are trying to survive on their own. And, maybe that has worked for several years. Guys like John Lunt, he gave his whole life to healthcare in this valley. And he didn't make a lot of money doing it either. I think with new federal and state regulations, I think those days maybe are behind us. And I think the first step, the phase 1 step, is to stabilize the nursing home. He's brought in some physical therapy to try to offset the losses. The nursing home is not going to be lucrative on its own. And now phase 1 on this deal will be to bring in the clinic with it. The language of a critical access hospital has been brought as that end of the road. That would be the ideal thing if it worked out. And that would encompass all of that stuff under one umbrella. But we're not to that point yet. But right now we are bringing the clinic into that group and hoping that they can break even. And with the current subsidy that's been going to the clinic in the last several years, it will still have a full-time doctor. So that's the math on it. We're in transition literally today on that, but that's what's going on.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions that are specific to the mayoral candidates. After that, we'll open it up to the audience and see if there's any questions, along with if there's any questions that come in over the Facebook live stream. So I just encourage all the candidates to stay up here so we can be part of that discussion. So since you have both held the position of mayor, what was your greatest accomplishment during your tenure? Mr. Globe.
I haven't thought about that. There's a lot of things we tried to do, and some of them went well and some of them didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that.
Okay, that's fine.
I guess I was pretty proud of, and I can't take full credit, obviously it was the council that worked together. We got Veterans Island looking up pretty good. We got, got the walk path over there. We got the bridge to nowhere placed in. We got new dressing facilities, a new not-so-hot hot pool. I know that a lot of the naysayers that didn't want to see that not-so-hot hot pool go in have since said, this isn't all bad. It's kind of nice that we did that. But I guess one of the greatest accomplishments, or one of the neatest things that happened to me after the 2011 situation, high water, I was recognized at the governor's State of the State address. There was five of us that the governor took down there, invited down there, and recognized the job as I did as mayor, and the town did during the flooding of 2011. So that was probably one of my highlights.
Thank you. In a leadership role, what are your greatest leadership strengths and weaknesses? Mr. Ziegler.
There again, going back to my emergency management thing, I've been through plenty of classes, we've had exercises, and you have to be right up there, and you have to take a lead role in doing the exercise. And I guess a day-to-day operation of the town is kind of like an ongoing exercise. You have to be ready to step up to the plate. You have to be ready to lead by example.
Well, my strengths would be I'm good with people, and I've been in a leadership role for a long time. My weaknesses are I'm too nice.
Why did you decide to file for mayor this go-round, or why did you decide to encourage a write-in campaign? Mr. Globe.
Well, I was the only Mohican at the time, so I decided I'd run again for the same reasons I did 4 years ago, just to volunteer and help out.
Okay, thank you.
I had a group of people approach me and said, "Hey, John, if we do a write-in campaign, would you accept it?" And I said, "Well, I guess it would depend on the number of write-ins I got. I mean, if it showed that I stood a chance against Mayor Globe, then I would probably step up to the plate." Then after I got to thinking about it, there again, I said earlier in my opening remarks, I was really concerned about the reserve account, and that's something that's near and dear to me. We've had 3 incidents that could really have beat us up. 2011, we did get federal help. Boozer Creek, if that head gate would have went and started a new channel across the golf course. When we had Army Corps in here, they told us that would have come out somewhere in the area of the hot pool. So would that have taken out part of that town? All speculation on our part, we don't know that, but that still would have been a very costly maneuver. Had the fire at the mill in April, the only thing that really saved us there was the direction of the winds. Had the winds switched, we would have lost, or could have very easily lost the subdivision above the Saratoga Inn, or we could have lost part of the west side of the river. And so just, that's why I decided to do it. We need to get the reserve accounts built back up. That's going to be one of my pet peeves if elected.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience for all the candidates? Great.
I've got one question, and I'm not real sure of all the comments. But as you all know, it wasn't too long ago when you had Hannah 50 1,600 people. Medicine Bow, 1,600 people. And it was pretty much over the coal for right to the little town areas, and of course the rest of the country, the economy crashed and burned also. And now we're kind of going back to the same thing with wind. You know, they said that, I think it's the federal government pays the guy that wants to build a wind farm 25%?
81%.
How much?
81%.
81%, whatever it is. And they've got 3 or 4 wind farms they're trying to push through because this scenario expires 2020, isn't it, Sue?
Mm-hmm.
And I would like our city government to broaden their vision to keep us from getting kicked in the royal butt like these other towns did over coal. If they're going to have billions or hundreds of millions in wind farms, and they go to pot like a lot of comments say they will, and I don't know, but so that we don't get stuffed. I forget what Medicine Bow, I think they give, what, $2 million to build that bank?
Mm-hmm. I think that was
And
before
we
me.
sold it to a wind farm gentleman for 65,000, wasn't it?
200 and some thousand.
Or 265,000. But I mean, if you have too much of that stuff happen in your town, it's kicking you in the royal butt financially, or finance. So anyway, all I'm making a comment is have our city government not get so tangled up in our 100,000 for the fire department and that, and then we get kicked with millions of dollars in damages, so to speak, because the whole scenario went to good.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't know. Thank
Why
you.
why don't we just give you all an opportunity to comment on the wind turbines and wind farms, if you'd like. Do you dare?
Unless you want to go back.
You reached for it first.
I think there's a big difference between the coal mine, so we're up in Hannah and Medicine Bow, and the wind farms we're going to see, and that is that we're definitely going to see a large influx of temporary workers and temporary jobs, and there's going to be a temporary housing shortage in the whole county, reaching into other adjacent counties. But it's going to be pretty short term, I think, and you're not going to see an influx of 500 families move here. All that infrastructure is built for them, and then have them pack up and leave. You know, Hannah and Medicine Bow were built over decades as those mines grew and thrived. So they're careful about as this happens. But I don't anticipate that we're going to see the same sort of long-term growth and then long-term contraction like our town saw through the COVID.
Okay. So I just want everybody to keep their eye open so we don't get kicked in the butt again.
And I'm going to let Mayor Glow get on this more, just he was part of it. They did have meetings for us, and the county and the communities were able to go and ask the wind farms, impact fees, I guess is the proper way of saying that. And so that's where the town is going to get some of their money. However, there again, I'm going to switch back, put another hat on. Next Thursday at our local emergency planning committee meeting in Rollins, held at 9 o'clock at the fire station, number 2, the two newest, and Sue, if you would tell me, the ones that are going over in by Medicine Bow, those groups are going to come and give us a presentation at our LEPC meeting, so I would encourage the public to come and listen and ask them some questions.
Put that on a piece of paper for me.
I will do that.
Okay. So as far as how we can get ourselves in trouble, I feel like the opportunity is less, just like John said. However, I think there's some room to kind of push ourselves forward a little bit with the impact fees and using that to kind of fix some of these nagging issues with that money that normally isn't there, and kind of get us pushed a little bit forward instead of, overreaching, building something new that now we have to maintain later on. I mean, by fixing things that need to be fixed instead of building things is one way where we can avoid some of those problems. And then just foresight with the council, to be vigilant about how it's going to affect us 5, 10 years from now if they have to leave. I think is another important way to look at that.
Another thing, I know in Wyoming, we're somewhat once removed from the national politics of wind and solar energy, even though everybody wants us, we have plenty of acreage and plenty of wind. To participate in both of those, knowing that those are both subsidized programs at the federal level. What I have learned in the last few years with all this wind turbine stuff is the people at Rocky Mountain Power and the Power Company of Wyoming are pretty sharp. The wind turbine project coming out here was, I think phase 2 is supposed to be completed in 2014, so it's taken a little bit longer than we thought. The good side of that is the turbines that they're going to put up will be more efficient, produce more power. But I think both of those companies are pretty established. I don't think they're going to come in here and build 1,000 turbines and then shut them down and leave. I don't think either one of those companies is like that. So that's just been my feel. I know some of the higher ups at both of those companies.
Yeah, but the fact is, you wouldn't have one turbine running in the United States or the world without heavy.
That's
And they didn't build your current coal and gas-fired power plants on government subsidy.
But we get pressure. We get pressure in Wyoming to stop producing coal of the war on coal, and we get pressure to build these wind turbines. That's the federal pressure on the state of Wyoming, and we can resist that to a point. But it's interesting because you can't sell a transmission line from here to Las Vegas with coal power. You'll never get it done. That wind farm is going to sell that transmission line to the public. All those easements would never get passed if you told them you were pushing coal power through those lines. Economically, in a bit bigger picture than just coal mine next to Hannah kind of a concept in my mind.
Can we make a pact right now, 4 of us, that we won't use any town Saratoga funds to subsidize any energy projects?
You can't keep up anyway. You don't have enough.
We do have a so far you're the only one on record.
Yes.
Well, how about the one that just closed, the solar plant in Southern California? What, 2 years ago? I think.
Mhm.
It only cost me and you $3 billion.
I'm not the one pushing it.
Okay, kidding.
No, but and I don't care if we do it, but if the wind don't blow, you don't have a wind turbine turning. I don't care what your conversation is.
Okay, so we do have a Facebook question, and he has been waiting a little bit to have this one asked. How will the town council enforce planning codes? We can have all the planning regulations we want, but if they're not enforced,
Is that Will Faust back there?
that would be Mr. Stephen Nichols.
Okay, is there someone who'd like to go first? John, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, the enforcement, I mean, the question is gets at a good point. We can spend all the time we want in a planning commission meeting writing all the policy that we think is good for the town, but if it's enforced, then what good is it? The enforcement comes down to the planning and zoning officer and to the police department. The police have the power to enforce the code. And that has been somewhat frustrating, being on the commission and being asked by people coming in that are bringing code violations to our attention. And not seeing anything done about it.
You're red, you're dead.
Start from the top.
No, ours is.
I guess it's gonna have to be, kind of a team effort. Yes, I know by the way the ordinance reads that the police department should be the ones that are going out there and enforcing those ordinances. But I don't know that our police officers are that informed on the zoning issues. So I think that's when the zoning officer is going to need to, I mean, the officer can go issue the citation, the officer will be the one that's, but the zoning officer is going to have to be the one that signs the complaint and actually do the testifying in court.
So we end up looking at a non-transparent meeting with the zoning officer, the chief of police, and the mayor, and one member of the council in a non-forum event. And you end up figuring out how you're gonna do that. Most people don't like that lack of transparency. We've been fighting this particular battle for decades, like we talked about. We're a mining town and a logging town that's evolving into a modern town. And we're right in the middle of that evolution, and that doesn't happen in a day. We've got a planning commission that's doing a great job. There's some conflicts in our code that they're fixing. Not everything in zoning has to do with cleaning up messes, even though that's what everybody gets heated about. So obviously I take that comment every day. So there's nothing easy about it. There will be days where the zoning officer does not feel empowered or supported to go enforce those codes. And a lot of that comes from the seat that I'm sitting in. So I know there's room for improvement there.
Amen. So I feel the prevention of some way to take care of them, and that's why the planning commission is so important. That's why community participation is so important. I also feel like making these codes less burdensome on the public really does help too, or giving them options or timeframes to get help. And so, if there was an easy solution, it would have been done already, because all of us have some things we'd like to be taken care of or fixed around here. But in the end, we're talking about somebody else and their property and their stuff. And so there's no easy way around it. But with future stuff the planning commission does, I think taking that into consideration, that should be one of the first things you think about. And it probably is when you're making code, is how to enforce it and how it will impact it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Great, Mr. Hodges.
I have one. lots of questions, but I've tried to weigh them. The one that I think comes to the top is your fire department needs more equipment, but it actually isn't your fire department, Mr. Mayor. Apparently, the arrangement is you have a contract with a private entity, some kind of a volunteer organization, to take care of the town of Saratoga. And you provide, and the county provides money for the equipment. And you can respond to that, that's not really my question. If we provide them with the airport, if we're gonna go more commercial, they've gotta have more trucks and more people and maybe different kinds of equipment in case of an airplane fire as opposed to a house fire. So it's rather involved. The question is, how does the town, Mayor Zig, former Mayor Ziegler, during your administration, you attempted to, I'm not sure I'm going to describe it correctly, but you attempted, I believe, to gain more influence over how the fire department was being run. And it didn't go very well. My question is, how does the town, before they pump all kinds of money into that private organization, gain some influence over how it's being run and how it's being supervised? Because they don't even show up, Mayor Bloat, at your town council meeting to bother to tell you if there was a fire last week. They don't send you a report. Nobody comes. I don't even know that they're even on the agenda anymore. So my question is, how and more money in to a good cause, don't have a problem with that. How do you gain more influence, just like you have influence over the police department and the public works and the various things? How do you gain more influence over the fire department?
You know, I don't believe that, I don't want to use the word that we were trying to get more influence over the fire department during my term. Mr. Nelson kind of read what's okay, we give X amount of, the council gives X amount of dollars. The fire department's supposed to help supplement that. That's not kind of how you read that, sir. And so that was our only concern back at that time was, okay, how much money do you guys have? We don't mind putting money towards that, but how much money do you have to supplement what you want us to put towards that? So I'm not saying we were trying to have more influence over that. We were just questioning the amount of money they had available to help with what they wanted to do.
But how do you answer the question right now? Do you want to have more influence over them? To finish what you were saying, since you were talking.
No, I don't think we do want to have more influence. They're firefighters. I don't have a clue what they do. Well, I have a clue what they do, but I don't even get involved with how they go out and put out the house fire or how they go out and cut somebody out of a vehicle. I don't want that influence by no means. They do their training, and it's probably one of the best trained small volunteer fire departments that I know of. In the, you're the wife of a fireman training session, and once a month they have their, they summertime they train every week. So no, I don't want any influence over there. Like I said, the question prior in my earlier term was we just wanted to see what they had. You know, they come to us at a request about X amount of dollars. We need to know what they have to do to help with that. I mean, how can they help supplement their request?
The word that the fire department uses anytime I meet with them is the word autonomy. They don't want an elected council to be in charge of their department. I think any of us, we might have a fire person on our council now and again, but I don't think we want any of that control. I think we're trying to help out where we can. It's a unique situation where we have a checkbook with a fire department in it, a $50,000 budget that usually spends closer to $12,000. And then they have their checkbook and their efforts for fundraising, and then we go through grant processes when it comes to a fire truck and work together with the county on that. The interesting thing about, our police department only operates within the municipal boundaries of the town. The fire departments around this valley don't work like that. So if you're fighting a fire out in the county, who's supposed to pay for that fire? That's kind of, there's a lot going on with the fire department. But, we don't have to put the first responder SPT fund 6-penny tax stuff on the Saratoga list. If we don't want, they could put it on the county list instead. That's, I guess I don't really know where to go with your question, Richard.
Mr. Keel.
I don't want to have any more influence over the fire department. You would have potentially 5 elected officials that have very little knowledge about it, trying to make the decisions. And I think that's a recipe for disaster. I think that potentially in the future, the model might change and it could get a lot more efficient, a little bit better. It might be easier to get funding. And so we as a council at that point might have to change town code to reflect that. But more than that, let's let the professionals do what they do, and we can help with funding, and we've agreed to do that according to town code. We do it until it changes.
I don't have anything to add, honestly. You guys, yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Do you have any more questions, Josh? No?
Nope, no more questions on Facebook.
All right, well, just want to thank all you guys for coming tonight,
Oh,
and
I
thank you
got
all
battery.
for coming, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you know that for $90, 100